I'm relatively optimistic. And, you know, you look around the world right now and you might think, are you kidding me? You know, there's a pandemic. We're all at risk of dying. And, you know, how can this old guy be optimistic? Well, I'm optimistic for several reasons. First of all, uh, the character of a crisis. What we know from our studies and our just personal life experiences, but change is difficult to achieve. And people are afraid. Fear is real. People are consumed with the kind of daily survival challenges. You know, we're all guard jealously any kind of opportunity or position, a job or whatever. We're afraid to, you know, contest power and so forth. But ultimately, human rights is about that contesting of power. It is actually about changing the way that power is manifest and operates in a way which is constructive and to the benefit of human beings and not, you know, otherwise. And so a crisis is a moment at which we are confronted with ultimately the choice with regard to power. And I think the kind of convergence at this moment of some very dangerous things, not only in terms of the virus, but also all the things it is revealing. What it is revealing are these problems we all knew exist. We all knew that racism and inequality and, you know, the 1%, and I could go through all of them. And we're now having to face it. So, for example, in Canada, in our own country, in Canada, you're right that it's not just a conceptual matter. Our Constitution does not include all human rights. We do not have domesticized or human rights in our Constitution for the right to health. We have a health pandemic, and Canadians kind of pride themselves thinking, "Oh, we have health care." It's not a right in Canada. And most Canadians, I don't think they even realize that. We are party to international instruments which expressly stipulate a right to health. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights in Article 12 expressly obliges Canada, we're a party without a reservation to this, to meeting the highest attainable standards of health for persons in our jurisdiction, not just our citizens, by the way, human beings in our jurisdiction. But we are not obliged under Canadian law to do it. And we have gaps. So, when the elderly people in our society have been subjected, and we knew they were subjected to not good health care in these long-term care homes and so forth. In fact, their human rights have been violated according to our international obligation, but not technically under our domestic law. And that's got to change. This is where a lot of people are now saying, and I think the crisis has drawn a lot of people's attention. And so, we have a very kind of local, parochial discussion now in Canada for non-Canadians watching about, why are long-term care and the elderly care not part of the Canadian Health Act, the federal legal umbrella that addresses it. There's specific questions about the Canadian Constitution and the federalism and so forth, but, it's now a really good question. Why are they not part of that? And we're going to have to change that. And I think we need reform, even constitutional reform in Canada. We need to expand the scope of protections and the incorporation, it's called incorporation for legal purposes, of economic, social, and cultural rights in Canada. Where it's going, I think people are seeing the failures and are demanding that gap be reduced, if not resolved, in favor of the effective enjoyment and the realization of human rights for everyone, everywhere. And not only in Canada, not only to, our citizens, but as a way we live together, more in tune with the conceptual idea of human rights. And so I'm optimistic about this because I think the next generations and kind of the way things are going, I think they have to resolve this in that way because the alternatives are untenable. And the pandemic is a kind of gift in some sense, because the character of a virus makes no distinction between rich and poor, and so forth. I mean, our systems make those distinctions, right? They protect the rich more, but the virus, it doesn't. So, Donald Trump in the White House is himself still at risk. In fact, he's quite at risk because he's an old white guy carrying extra weight with a heart condition. So, he's got to worry. and that, I think that draws enough people to say, you know what? The solution in this is not to create a cordon of special protection for a few old rich white guys, but is to actually have a better system. And I think this is an encouraging thing, and I'm hopeful.